Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Let's get started. This is the City of Urbana Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. I'll call the meeting to order. Could we have a roll call?
Bill Brown,
Here.
Annie Adams, Leonardo Kovis,
Here.
Kara Dudek,
Here.
Cynthia Hoyle,
Present.
Audrey Ishii,
Here.
Susan Jones,
Here.
Jeff Marino,
Here.
Craig Schonkweiler,
Here.
Nancy Westcott,
Here.
Morgan White.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Cynthia, seconded by Sue. Any other corrections? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Agenda is approved. Next, we have approval of minutes from March, right? No, April. April. Everybody get a chance to take a look at those? Any corrections? No corrections. Is there a motion then to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Moved by Nancy and seconded by Sue. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Thanks. Minutes are approved. Public input. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Seeing none. We have a couple of unfinished business items. One is expansion of sidewalk snow removal districts that we've discussed a couple of other times. So this time I brought a draft resolution. Hopefully we can make some more specific progress. I know that I thought of a couple other things under after the therefore be it resolved. The whereases are just laying out the background, the why, our justification. So if you think of anything that needs to be in there, let me know, but I think I covered most of it there. The main thing I think we need to hammer out is what specifically we want to recommend. I put down the three that I think we all agreed on, and then I thought later I think we might have also agreed on Lincoln Avenue, extending that because the University District only goes up to Springfield. So we might even think about extending the University District clear to University. So I'll bring up the map there and then we can discuss that a little bit. Okay, can everybody see that? Is that on your screens? Okay, maybe I can get rid of this. So the purple lines are the safe routes to school. The purple lines are safe routes to school. So that's not really part of the sidewalk zones. It's just on there for reference. The main ones are the downtown area. There's a couple different colors depending on whether the city plowed them or whether businesses had to do them. But basically it's just that square. And then the University District goes to Springfield. And again, the colors just is whether the university plows them or whether the property owners, the other private property owners plow them. The other one was Philo Road District, which was just two sides of Philo Road for part of it, and then the multi-use path down to Windsor. So what I have in the resolution right now was to expand this up to University Avenue, include a section up to Park Street on Broadway. Oh, that's right, sorry, on Broadway. And then University would go from Cunningham. I said to the University District, but it doesn't really connect there, so we'll have to put something in either to say Lincoln Avenue to Wright Street, whichever one we decide, and then if we want to expand University District north. So are there any ideas about that?
I agree with you about expanding from Springfield to University. We have hundreds, if not students living north of University walking now. That wasn't there when this was created. And then we have the development at Lincoln and University. That's
On both corners, yeah.
So there are going to be many more people, and we all know that with the constrained right-of-way on Lincoln, that the sidewalk there is difficult to navigate. We may have to have some conversation with property owners, because I know when the snowplows go through there, because of some of the retaining walls, the pile of snow can be significant. It can be 3 or 4 feet, and I'm not quite sure how the city can deal with that. But we may want to have some conversations with property owners that have problematic sidewalk locations to see if there's any way we can assist in making it easier for them to do that. And because it'll be quite a task with the pile of snow I have seen on occasion. The last few years we haven't had that much snow. This last winter we had a little more. But when it's only 3 or 4 inches, that's not really such a big deal. But when and if we get bigger storms, then it's more significant. But I agree with you. I think we should do that, because I think we've many more people walking now than we did when this was first developed.
I think as far as compliance goes, I think one of our strategies was to try to focus mostly on commercial and apartment buildings, because commercial theoretically should be plowing their sidewalks anyway for their customers, and apartment buildings are required to clear their own walks and their own stairways, so they should already have somebody employed to do that. It's a little bit harder when you get to private property owners. So I'm thinking there's not really a lot of single family or single family rentals, even anything like that in that area. It's mostly apartments now. There's some on Main Street that probably won't be there for long. Does that make sense to people? So do you want to go ahead and say we recommend expanding the University District up to University?
Does that mean that the university would be plowing it?
Well, they already probably plow a lot of that,
I mean,
because
clearing
that's
the
these blue lines here within the current University District is what they're already plowing. So they probably already do a lot, like especially around Siebel Center and the whole engineering quad. They're probably already doing most of this, but mostly we're talking about a lot of the Wakeland properties in here, and on Goodwin and Lincoln and Maine. Yeah, so. Yeah, mostly this area would be the apartments area, and I don't know. I don't walk through there in the wintertime. Does anybody else notice whether they're already clearing much there?
Well,
or?
I have pictures on Lincoln, and it was not being cleared when we had significant snowfall, and people were running into the street and back to get around the enormous glacier on the sidewalk.
Yeah, in Lincoln it's really tough. I've crossed there, and it gets packed down so fast, and then you can't do much with it. So yeah, that I don't know what the city currently does in those kind of complicated situations where it's just hard. But I guess that's whatever they're currently doing in other areas, they'd have to do on Lincoln there. But that's something that we could recommend, and then city staff will take a look at it and maybe have a different recommendation, or city council might say, no, we want to make the whole city. I don't know. Who knows? But I think that would be a reasonable recommendation. Should we? Okay, so tentatively, let's add that.
Do you need a motion to amend the resolution, or can you just make a change?
It kind of depends where, if we think it's close enough where we could make a couple of changes with amendments and then go ahead and pass it.
Okay.
We could do that. If we think that we want to add more than that and want to bring it back another month, we could. You can just let me know and I'll add it.
Well, I'd be happy to make a motion to expand the University District between Lincoln and Wright north to University Avenue, and to include Lincoln on both sides.
Okay.
Do you mean the campus district?
The campus district.
Right, campus. So let's say, could you
Correct.
say to add section D or part D to section 1 saying change the northern boundary of the University District to University Avenue?
That sounds great.
Okay. Were you able to get that?
But I think you mean the campus district. I'm bringing that up because
campus
there's a district designated as university district that's separate from the
Yeah,
snow
thank you.
removal district.
Yeah, should be campus district.
And do you mean the north side of University Avenue or the center?
Yeah, I think elsewhere in the ordinance it says the boundaries include both sides of the streets. So I think we can just say to University Avenue. And then the other two I had in here was the two corridors, University Avenue and Green Street, connecting the two districts. So if we say expand it to University Avenue and we expand the downtown district to University Avenue, then it should connect, right? So is that the only change that we need to make? I put in a section 2 in case you wanted to add suggested other areas that we talked a little bit about, routes to schools and things like that. But I don't know. I mean, if you start getting into that and you get a street here and a street there, it just seems a little complicated to me right now.
I think for now, let's see what happens with these additions. And I think adding in others, I mean, if we wanted to say additional consideration should be considered to, for safe routes to school routes along major roadways, we could. But I mean, we could certainly say that, but I think that in terms of getting this done, it would be better to focus on the things we really want to get accomplished right now.
That's kind of my sense too. Maybe just keep it simple and don't give anybody a chance to delay it for some obtuse reason. So would somebody like to, did we vote on, we didn't vote on that last one, did we?
I made a motion, I need a second.
Is there a second to Cynthia's motion?
Can we repeat that motion? Just review it one more time.
Yes. Change the northern boundary of the campus district from Springfield to University.
And that would be a Part D under Section 1. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Morgan. Any discussion on that? Any further discussion?
I have some. I'll speak on from city staff perspective, just so that the other commissioners understand. We, even though this would be required of the property owners to clean, there still is staff that would have to be involved. We are currently dealing with serious budgetary issues where we are not expanding services, we are actually reducing services. In the last 2 years, we have lost 9 full-time equivalents, and there's expected to be this upcoming year more reductions in service loss to the city. So I just want to bring that forward, that I think that's something that me being a staff member that I want to enlighten you. As a result of that, I'll be voting no for any kind of expansion of the snow removal. It's not because I don't believe that it's a good thing to do, but we are in some very serious budgetary times where no services are being expanded. So I just want to bring that forward.
So is the staff time mostly enforcement? Because this is actually came from the nuisance division of the Public Works, I think, originally.
Right.
So is it the enforcement aspect that takes the staff
Enforcement,
time?
and then if they do not clear, then the city would have to clear.
Have to, yeah.
Yeah. And then they have to charge the property owner. That's my understanding. So now, maybe it passes and then it's further analyzed and discussed, and then, it really would ultimately be the city council's say yay or nay. I'm just bringing it forward as a city staff member that knows about the budgetary issues that are pretty serious.
I have a question about that, and you may not know the answer, but there is significant enforcement of mowing grass. So what do the people who do enforcement on that do in the wintertime?
That I do not know, that answer.
Because I know from having other properties in town that if your grass gets too high, you get a note on your door. And that is a more labor-intensive enforcement activity because grass grows all summer, and people have to mow the grass pretty regularly, or it gets too high, and so that has always sort of boggled me that we spend a lot of money on getting people to mow their grass. And I understand the reasons for that. On the other hand, grass being too tall, as far as I know, has never resulted in anybody having to walk in the street and being hit by a car. So it seems to me that, the enforcement that is occasionally done, maybe once or twice every few years, is a lot less labor intensive than enforcing our requirements for lawn maintenance. And so I'm just kind of curious about the labor component and the comparison between those two kinds of nuisance issues.
I don't have that answer. The only thing I would say is a snow event, though, is a little different than a grass issue. In this case here, is my understanding, if a property owner does not clear the snow, then the city would have the right to go ahead and clear the snow and then back charge the property owner. I'm just pointing out that there is some staff time involved, and I'm just bringing that forward. So.
Sure. But I think
Yeah.
the city also has to go out and mow if they refuse to mow after a
They
certain.
usually use contractors, but yeah,
Yeah.
it takes time to identify the properties, make contact with the person, and then refer it to the contractor. And like Craig said, with the snow event, this is 2 days after everybody's already got a lot of overtime because they had to clear the streets and everything. And it has to be done within a day or two, otherwise it's either a hazard or it melts.
But it would be interesting to know what responsibilities people
Yeah,
would do, the
and
other
see, I think
nuisance enforcement.
if we go forward with this and if city council takes an interest in it, they would probably ask for some kind of cost estimate or something, or time estimate, and maybe it wouldn't go any farther, but, that would be up to them, I think.
Well, and maybe it's not that much of an issue either. I don't know, but it is an expansion of a service, and we're not in that mode at this time. I do think that your point about keeping it simple is probably the best way to go about it. Otherwise, if you do add to Section 2, I fear that may stall it. So in essence, picking what's most important would give you the greatest amount of success, too.
Okay, yeah, Sue.
Yeah, I think it's worth getting this together and putting it before them just to kind of focus the attention on the actual effect of all this new development and all these new pedestrians, and that, we need to be thinking in this direction. And they can make the decisions about the budget and everything else, but I think it's important to draw it to their attention.
Anyone else? Okay, ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
One? Okay. The ayes have it, that motion carries. And that was to add Section D, actually. So could we also have a motion to delete Section 2, since I have a Section 2 in there in the draft? Sue made a motion to delete Section 2. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Who is that? Oh, Audrey? Okay. Any discussion on deleting Section 2? Okay, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, so now we have the resolution with the amended resolution with the item D that adds the campus district expansion. Any other amendments to the resolution? Any other discussion before we vote on the resolution? Okay, then we need a motion to approve the resolution.
I move to approve the resolution.
Okay, so moved by Sue. Is there a second?
I second the resolution.
Moved by Sue and seconded by Nancy to pass the resolution supporting the expansion of sidewalk snow removal districts. Any more discussion on that? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you very much. That resolution is approved.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Okay, next is advanced stop lines, presentation by Cynthia Hoyle.
And Audrey may have something that she wants to say on this as well. This is just my presentation. So, and I want to say I'm happy to get to be here this month. I missed the meeting in April, and then we didn't have one in May, so I'm glad to be back here. And I was not at the meeting where the staff presented the plans for the safety improvements on Lincoln Avenue. And so I also wanted to, we got an email this afternoon advising us to keep in mind the purpose of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. So I included that here and highlighted the provisions of that apply to what I am presenting tonight. And then just as a quick sort of reminder, and you see my Google Earth picture of the intersection of Main and University here, that what we currently have is 4 lanes for vehicles. We have a constrained right-of-way, so we have not a lot of space that we can work with here.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I'm just not sure which intersection it is because I wasn't at a few previous conversations.
This is Main and University. The picture is the entire area that was discussed covered more than.
Those are parallel. Is it Main and Lincoln?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to say Lincoln.
Okay, Main and Lincoln.
Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you. I was just not sure.
I got University stuck in my brain from
From snow.
yeah. It says at the top, existing conditions on Lincoln Avenue between Green and University. But what we have here is Lincoln and Main. Thanks for correcting me. That would have confused everybody. And so on Lincoln, we do have a constrained right-of-way, and we currently have anywhere between 4,500 and 14,500 and 15,400 vehicles. And I think based on staff's counts, there were at least that many, and it was higher in some locations. We have a posted speed limit of 30 miles per hour, but we generally feel that that's often exceeded. We don't have any speed studies along here. We also know that we don't have good compliance with Illinois law requiring stopping and yielding the right-of-way to users of the crosswalk. And staff did account and found a significant number of pedestrians and bicyclists crossing at Main and at some of the other intersections as well. But Main was the highest count that they found. And based on those findings, they had a set of recommendations, and it will greatly enhance safety for crossing there. It's going to narrow the travel lanes to 11 feet. They are currently 12 feet, is that correct? And expand the center refuge island on Lincoln, which is pretty narrow right now. Install high visibility crosswalks and warning signs, and there will be improvement of the ramps, and it will make things ADA compliant. There will be improvements to sidewalks where needed, and it also will change the curb radius to make it sharper, and that results in drivers turning more slowly, which makes it safer for pedestrians and bicycles or any other users of the crosswalk. And all of those things will definitely have a big impact on improving safety. There are a number of issues with crosswalks at uncontrolled locations, and these are generally at intersections or uncontrolled intersections. They're not really mid-block. So one of our big issues is the fact that drivers are unaware of the law requiring them to stop, and studies nationally show that compliance rates are typically between 15 and 32%. And I think that's probably about right for what happens in a lot of locations where there's just a crosswalk.
What exactly does the law say? Like, if somebody's standing on the sidewalk and they look like they want to cross the street,
No.
do you have to stop?
No, but when they step into the crosswalk, you are supposed to stop. But you are not supposed to step into the crosswalk if a vehicle cannot reasonably stop. So, in other words, you should not step out in front of the bus that is 10 feet away. And so if a driver is going to have to screech to a stop, then don't step out. So the problem, of course, with that is it's a matter of judgment on the part of the pedestrian and the driver, and it's often hard after the fact to establish exactly what was going on. The other thing that I think is problematic is that depending on the capability of a pedestrian, their ability to judge speed and distance can result in them walking into a crosswalk with an understanding that there is plenty of space to stop. On the other hand, I think that drivers think that you are supposed to wait until no one is coming to cross the street. And in fact, there was a piece in the News-Gazette, I believe Sunday, asking people for their pet peeve driving behaviors. And one of the people said, pedestrians should wait until I stop and wave them across before crossing. And I think that is what many drivers believe is how things should operate. So I think there's a lack of understanding, and so that's where various treatments can help make it clear how people are supposed to behave and improve safety. And we know, where we've done a lot of work, and staff has made a lot of effort to improve safety for crossing south on Lincoln. And I know from personal experience that drivers are not good at complying with that. You can be in the middle of the street and they will honk at you and yell at you. There's also what we call a multi-lane crash threat because of the 4-lane cross-section here, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And the fact that we feel that because it's 4 lanes, we have higher speeds on Lincoln between University and Green. We also know we're going to have even more users of the sidewalks and the crosswalks because of the development being proposed, additional development being proposed at Lincoln and University, and the one being built north of University on Lincoln currently. So this is trying to explain the multi-lane crash threat, which is really only a huge issue when you've got 2 lanes going in the same direction. And this is the description of that from a federal publication, that it results from a driver often in the right-hand lane stopping for a pedestrian, and the pedestrian walking out, and the driver in the lane next to them to the left can't see the pedestrian, and the pedestrian can't see the driver. And this has happened in our community where pedestrians were crossing legally at that point, and the driver couldn't see them. And those collisions are often fairly high speed and can be quite significant for pedestrians. So we have officially in the community what is a document called the Champaign-Urbana Pedestrian Crossing Enhancement Guidelines. And in looking through that, and that's what staff based their recommendations on, basically what we've got from the chart that was there and the analysis that was done is 5 lanes with a raised median, 12 to 15,000 vehicles per day, a speed limit of 30 miles an hour, and it recommends a treatment called crossing type B. And so I've listed here what that would include, and that would be the march crosswalk, which we have the pedestrian warning signs, which have been recommended to be mounted on the side of the roadway, and then the standard pedestrian warning signs in advance of the crossing, and also the state law for pedestrian signs, the R1-6, that are mounted on signposts and median when present. And these also can be used in the roadway. And this is a picture of some from a federal publication that shows what those look like. They're quite effective. I looked at some of the research on this, and they often put them in the middle of a street. They're reasonably inexpensive. They're $65 to $70 and each, and easy to install. And the studies have found that compliance rates, that 15 or 16 to 32% as required by law, improves dramatically with the addition of the R1-6 signs, particularly when combined with increased enforcement activity. In Minneapolis, in St. Paul, Minnesota, there was a pretty recent study, I think it was 2017 or 2018, looked at this and evaluated a number of intersections and did a number of treatments and did before and after studies. And some communities have really embraced these signs a lot, and for example in Brookline, Massachusetts, they've installed 50 of them there. So they are getting used in a variety of cities around the country. The Federal Highway Administration has guidance as well, and in terms of their recommendations based on the data that we're looking at for this section of roadway, and you all have seen these, we had these on green where you install the advanced stop bar, and they recommend 20 to 30 feet from a crosswalk, and the reason for that is that then if one car stops, the other cars can still see and the pedestrian can still see if there's a car that's not stopping, and those have been very effective. So when stop bars have been installed, it shows that there's 11% reduction in total crashes, a 20% reduction in rear end and side swipe crashes, and a 36% reduction in pedestrian crashes. And the study I pulled that from is down here at the bottom. And I wanted to note that when you have it at an intersection, you put the stop bars on the far side of the intersection. You can't put a stop bar in the middle of an intersection. So the stop bar would be back here for an intersection crossing that is uncontrolled. And I wanted to show you, I was last week on the Grand Illinois bike tour. Sue was on that with me as well, and we bicycled through Charleston. And I was very impressed. They've done a road diet on a main street that goes through campus, and they put in the high visibility crosswalks, some pedestrian activated beacons, but in every one of them they had the signs saying stop for pedestrians and crosswalks. And it was working really well. The student orientation, I think, was going on while we were there. So there were quite a few students and a few drivers and about 250 bicyclists. So.
And Cynthia,
Yes.
I'd like to point out there that there's no stop bar there, but apparently that's because that's a single lane in each direction. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be true.
Yeah. It's the stop bar is specifically for multi-lane dangers.
And this is Green Street. This is how it's designed after the MCOR project. And it used to be a 4-lane cross-section all along Green Street. It's different number of lanes in different places because we have some bus-only lanes and some shared bus car lanes when there's a turn lane. But we still have those in place, and they have worked reasonably well. We haven't had any pedestrian fatalities there. We had one severe injury crash. That was a bicyclist that fell off their bike into the street who was unfortunately intoxicated. And the vehicle-on-vehicle crashes are lower than many of the other arterials in town, so they've worked very well. And I am happy to answer any questions. I sent you all the memo that I submitted to the Traffic Commission. They did approve staff's plans for the improvement, so those will be proceeding forward. And I agreed to come and make the presentation tonight to just share the information that I had provided to the Traffic Commission and share it all with you just so you knew about that information, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Cynthia?
Thanks for organizing it and finding the references and the pictures and all the good stuff.
You're welcome. I had to bike back over to the street in Charleston to take some more pictures because I was very impressed because it's a small community, but they've done a really nice job on campus, and they're installing some bike infrastructure, not as nice as ours, but they're making progress. They have a bike plan, so.
Cynthia, I have a couple.
Yeah, go ahead, Audrey.
What about Bradley Avenue? And now they have a multi-lane travel also, and in Champaign, did you find the crosswalk treatment there was adequate, or did it lead to problems?
In Urbana, we did a road diet, so we only have one lane each direction on Bradley in Urbana. In Champaign, they still have 4 lanes, and down in front by Kraft in the Developmental Services Center, many years ago there was a crosswalk installed, and I expressed concern about that, and in fact there was a fatality of someone who worked there it was a multi-lane crash that occurred. So then the city, in fact, installed what is called a hawk signal there, which are also very effective, but they're also very expensive. And what that does is it uses flashing yellow and then red lights to only stop the traffic in one direction and then in the other direction, so the pedestrian can cross the street. And they're extremely effective, but I think that the rapid flashing beacons are almost equivalent in effectiveness, and they're, gosh, I think that the Hawks are like $400,000, and rapid flashing beacon is more like $40,000, if I remember the numbers correctly.
The Hawk would be more like 150,000.
Oh, they're much less. Okay.
And then each pair of, each setup's about, say, 15 to 30,000, depending upon the setup.
For the rapid flashing
Yeah,
beacons.
yeah.
Yeah, so there is a significant difference in cost. Initially, they were more, but I guess since more of them have been used, they're not as expensive anymore.
Very few streets qualify for the Hawks. I mean, they have
The
to
warrants.
be. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're pretty involved. I mean, the one at
They
Kraft
are.
was a definite
Yeah.
situation there, but.
Yeah, they are really involved, and I think what is recommended here with expanding the pedestrian refuge island and some of the other treatments gives us greatly improved safety for significantly less cost. I think staff said that the intersection didn't qualify for the rapid flashing, it didn't meet warrant for the rapid flashing beacons yet. And so that's why that was not proposed at this location. As pedestrian traffic increases, it's possible that could change and they could go back and take a look. I know we also were talking about applying for grant funding for the southern section of Lincoln, and now that the capital bill has passed and there's additional funding, I'm hopeful that we can get some funding to do some of the other treatments that they wanted to do there as well, because I think that that would really help significantly along that stretch as well.
Bill, can I speak?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So, couple updates in respect to what Cynthia talked about there, and I can freely speak about it now since council passed the budget last night and the capital improvement plan.
Oh, good.
We have put in for a study for Lincoln Avenue from It would be south of Pennsylvania, which is Delaware, up to just north of Nevada. So that section will be, we will do what they call a Phase 1 study, where we'll look at all the intersections. We'll look at the corridor through there. I'm particularly interested in talking with the university about seeing if we can pull the sidewalk on the west side away from the roadway. We've had one fatality there. We had another student struck there. That'll be something that we'll be discussing with the university. But we're going to do a full-blown study, which then hopefully will qualify us for some highway safety funds. Particularly at Lincoln in Ohio and Lincoln in Iowa. Those two intersections are listed as unsafe intersections per data that the Department of Transportation has. The other corridor that we have on another tangent that we're doing a study on is Florida Avenue from west of Lincoln all the way to east of Vine.
Wow.
And as part of that, we will be looking at a multi-use path that will run on the south side of Florida in front of the president's house. Staff's already, we had done a cursory analysis and worked out a little bit of some kinks with Stacy DiLorenzo with U of I, but we just didn't have the funds to do that, but that hopefully would qualify for an ITEP grant. And then we would also look at the Race and Florida intersection, which is also deemed an unsafe intersection. There could be some innovative treatments done there. We'll look at the Orchard in Florida, and we'll also look at Florida and Vine. And then we have pavement issues that we're trying to mitigate there, too. Back to this project, we took this project to the Historic Preservation Commission for the Urbanus Commission there. I want to just update folks on that. We had to do that because the east leg of Maine at Lincoln is a historic district. And as part of our clearances that we have to go through with the use of motor fuels tax funds, we have to look at all buildings and impacts to buildings and such. And what the commission came out of it, and they recommended a finding of no adverse effect with the recommendation, though, or with the condition that the brick sidewalks remain. So what I'm in the process of doing is shifting the split where the multi-use path and the sidewalk come together, shifting them down farther just to allow that brick sidewalk on the north side to pretty much stay. And then we'll actually restore some concrete sidewalk on the south side to brick also. So we'll actually, in the end, we'll have a net gain of brick. And I think by doing this too, we won't have any safety issues with the bicyclists running up on the brick. We'll still have our sweep that we're talking about coming off the road. We're just going to move it a little bit closer to the road there. All of this gets presented to the DOT, then they present it to the State Historic Preservation Officer. The State Historic Preservation Officer came back and said that they wanted to look at the entire corridor, so I'm in the process of gathering data for that. And then the State Historic Preservation Officer will rule on what we are required to do, and that ruling will be binding. So we would have to do that to use the motor fuel tax funds.
Wow.
So that's just bringing everybody up to speed here.
Nothing's ever simple.
Nothing's ever
That's
simple.
really interesting. And then I guess all of downtown historic district will be treated the same.
Yes.
Nobody bothered to tell us that at council when we passed that. They said, oh no, there's no certificates needed. It's just for the tax credits.
With the DOT, the regulations are really strict.
Wow.
It's interesting. I mean, developments can get by with certain things, but with roadways, we cannot. So it'll be interesting to see what the SHPO recommends there. But it was with our Historic Preservation Commission, I found them to be very reasonable
Good.
and you know, they had some good points. So I think we can accommodate their request.
I have a question, Craig. Who do you usually hire to do a study like the one that was authorized?
Well, so what we'll do there is for this, like you were talking about, like Lincoln Avenue in Florida, we will go through a qualification-based selection hire. So what we will do is we'll put out a request for proposals.
You will, okay.
And then we form a committee, and then we select based upon the proposals and their qualifications. and then we negotiate price after the fact.
Oh, okay.
So I have we have a supplemental engineering contract, but that contract was meant to supplement staff time, but this will be a separate proposal that'll go out.
Okay.
So, so then any consultant can submit, and then we evaluate from there, so.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
One is, are there advanced stop bars planned on Lincoln for the, is that currently in the design, the advanced stop bars for the 2-lane crossings?
For, you mean, are talking about on Lincoln from Green to University?
Yes.
No,
Is that something that can still be considered?
no.
Okay. And then the other thing is the, just because I got curious when you were describing it, the brick sidewalks, are those going to be permeable, or are they going to have pavement underneath the brick?
The bricks, we're required to reuse the bricks that are there because they have a certain look and feel, so they will not be permeable.
I asked that question.
I mean, what will be under
Will it have
the
a
bricks?
sand base?
Well, it'll be, I believe, it's either a sand base or an aggregate base.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that actually.
But they're filled
would be
with more-
permeable in my head.
Well, they're filled with mortar, though, so it doesn't allow the
Oh,
water to.
between each brick?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's swept in and then washed out,
Mm-hmm.
so they're not, it's not really permeable, so to speak.
And they're slick when they're wet.
Cynthia beat you to the punch on the permeable bricks. But we have to reuse, it's a certain look and feel. And so we're reusing the bricks that are there, and we have a stockpile of bricks that are similar, and then we would reuse those, so.
Yeah, I asked about the permeable paving because at MTD in the parking lot, we've had it for several years now, and the water drains off super fast because it's permeable. They are never slick, and the snow and ice seem to even melt faster. I don't know if it's because of the airflow. The heat from the ground is able to help, with that. I don't know the reason for that. I just know that and they're smoother as well. So I emailed Craig and said, oh, can we substitute those? And as per the preservation requirements, no.
Audrey?
Yes, I'd just like everyone, although I didn't receive the memo to make sure that the content of what we discuss is appropriate for this commission, I would just like to make sure everyone knows that Cynthia and I did attend the Traffic Commission meeting in June. And one of the questions that came up, I believe the police department especially had this concern, is whether pedestrians are getting a false sense of security when they see a lot of enhanced treatment for safety, crosswalk safety, a lot of signage, whether that causes pedestrians, especially students, to step out into the street without looking, with their eyes glued to their cell phone and so on. And there was no research available at that meeting to answer that question. I believe Cynthia agreed that she would research and bring that to the fore. Another issue that came up at the meeting was that everything was based on the pedestrian safety enhancements guidelines from RPC, which, while it was approved in 2017, did not include the Fed Highways 2017 pedestrian safety guidelines. They referenced the 2005. So there were actually 12 years more data and information provided in the Fed Highways of 2017, which Eric Jacobson looked up after the meeting. So, and then became concerned and alarmed because, or I'll say that he was alarmed, because the evidence was even stronger that stop bars are a highly desirable feature when you have crosswalk treatments on multi-lane crossings. Cynthia, are you planning to present your findings on whether crosswalks cause pedestrians to behave?
I did send a follow-up
inappropriately?
email and cited the studies and there are quite a few studies on this. Charlie Zagier and others have done, and I'd be happy to send that to BPAC. It showed, in fact, that pedestrians are no more likely to step out in front of cars when there are crosswalks or other enhancements than they are when there is nothing there. And in fact, in many cases, there was a slight increase in their looking before crossing. So there was no evidence to support the contention that pedestrians become overconfident. That's not to say there aren't people who walk out without looking, but they probably walk out without looking when there's not a crosswalk. They're not paying attention wherever it is they are. And so I think it would be very, very interesting, and it would be a great student project to do an observational study on Lincoln and identify the rate of vehicles not stopping for pedestrians and pedestrians not crossing properly. I think it would be a very interesting analysis if we could find a student, a class or a group that would take a look at that, because I would really like to have some data on that, because we get constant complaints about drivers not yielding there. I've experienced it repeatedly, and so we know it's a problem that some of those intersections have been identified as dangerous. So I think we just have a lack of understanding on the part of many drivers about what they're supposed to do.
Well, and that brings up something that I find attractive about stop bars is the reduction in stress for drivers as well as pedestrians. Drivers suddenly know what this means. What is this zebra striping across there? When they see a stop bar, I think they understand where they're supposed to stop. It also gives a little distance that they can actually manage a stop. They lower the stress of everyone on the street, I think, because, and for the drivers as much as for the peds. I mean, people driving cars are not failing to empathize to some degree with the stress and fear of a pedestrian who's not sure if that car is going to stop right at the edge of the zebra walk or not. That stress of the pedestrian is transmitted to the driver as well.
I will say I sent out the memo on, just copied our responsibilities and our duties to remind people that we advise the mayor and the council. That's our purpose, and make policy recommendations. You know, and all these discussions are good, and it helps us advise that. And any individual member, especially if you have expertise in the subject matter, is perfectly willing, is perfectly free to go to Traffic Commission and other city commissions, Historic Preservation Commission, talk about their own experience and their knowledge and everything. I think as far as making specific recommendations on treatments, that's not our job. We don't have, I mean, City Council doesn't vote on that. The only thing City Council votes on, I think, is parking and one-way streets is the only thing I remember. So that sort of thing is designated to Traffic Commission and city engineers. So it's appropriate, I think, to let RPC know that their one-year-old study is probably already out of date. That would be appropriate for our committee to look into a little bit more. If they didn't consider it, maybe they considered it, but they probably didn't, because that's
No, I
just too
think
recent.
not.
So, you know, that's the reason I sent that out. We just have to be a little careful about trying to recommend specific treatments, and especially places where there's physical constraints and things like that. You know, that we just don't know all the details of. Anything else on that subject? Okay, next is Bicycle Safe Grate Inventory by Nafis, is that how you say it? And Craig.
So, good evening. If you recall, as part of the Bicycle Master Plan, one of the goals in the master plan was to assess our bicycle safe grates throughout the city on our bikeways, and really determine how many are unsafe and what we can do, you know, to rectify that situation. I have here today Nafis Rahman. He is an engineering intern with my group, the transportation section with the City of Urbana. Nafis is just finished up his freshman year at the University of Illinois, and we're fortunate to have a gentleman with his intellect and his availability to take this on. So I tasked Nafis to do an assessment of the city bikeways, the existing city bikeways. And he's here today to present his findings. And I would say at this point, it's still a work in progress, but you're almost done.
Almost, yeah. Hi, I'm Nafiz. So I'm here to talk about the bicycle safe grade inventory. So the goal of this, of the inventory goal was to assess the on-street bicycle drainage grades and just to determine if they are friendly or unfriendly to the rider's experience. So the first question that should come up is, what is a friendly grade? And that can be divided into 4 parts, and it must fit all 4 of these parts. It must be perpendicular to the direction of the road. It must be flush with the pavement that is on the road it's on. It must be one of the 12 approved grades by IDOT, and the slots of the grade cannot exceed 6.5 inches by 1.5 inches. Here we have one of the 12 drainage grades approved by IDOT. It's R3 281-A by Nina. And you can see on the diagram that each of the slots are about 5.25 inches by 7 to 8 inches. And of the 12, 10 of the grades pretty much look exactly like this, where it's just cross sections. And then the other 2 are special case drainage grades, where they are just straight lines, but they have to be perpendicular to the road. So the next question that would have come up was, what is an unfriendly grade? And here are 3 examples of unfriendly grades. We have an unauthorized drainage grade, and it's unauthorized because it goes diagonal to the direction of the road. It's parallel with the road, and you can see it runs along with the road, and one that's not flush with the pavement. And all 3 of these could be harmful and just detrimental to the rider's experience. And all 3 of these could be found on Gregory, which we'll see later on the map. And this is how we are taking inventory. As you can see, we have the location of the grade, a photo of the grade, and our reasoning for why it is unsafe for the bicyclist, and also a recommendation on what to do, such as, since it's parallel with the road, the best recommendation would be to get a new grade instead of just paving over it. And so from my findings, I found that in the city of Urbana, there are 40 unfriendly bicycle grades, and this is out of the 213 total drainage grades on bicycle facilities. And about 19% is about unfriendly. And here's a pie graph of the distribution of the unfriendly grades. And you can see majority of the grades are just not proper. They do not follow IDOT's plans, which would mean that we would need to redo all the majority of the grades. And there are some that are parallel and broken, and but again, majority of them are just not proper. And so the next question would be, where are these grades located? I have 2 maps. Here is a map of the city. And each one of these different colored lines represents a different type of bicycle facility, such as the light pink represents it's off the street, and so it's like a sidewalk, or not sidewalk, but it's And here is my findings on where they are located. Every single one of these dots represents an unsafe bicycle grade, and as you can see, there are some locations where there is a mass number of them, such as in Fairview, where there's a lot of unsafe grades. And just as a reference, here are my coloring systems where you'll see a lot of light green because, again, a lot of them are just not proper grades. And pink will mean not flush and not proper, or not flush. Purple will mean neither. Gold will mean parallel, and gray will mean broken.
These,
Yeah.
if you'll click on the arrow there, you can eliminate the side panel, and you'll get more of the on the screen. Yeah, perfect.
Sorry about that. And yeah, in Fairview, there's a lot of that's not proper. Same thing is with Gregory Drive, where there's a lot of non-proper right there. And throughout the city of Urbana, you'll also see there are some that are just by themselves. Others are in but many of them are in a cluster. And it's just throughout the entire city where you can find all these improper grates.
Wow.
Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, Leo.
First of all, thanks. It's really good, really cool information. I'm wondering where the improper grades come from. Are they just really old?
That's
or-
what I'm assuming because
Okay.
when I was looking at my information, I was seeing that really early on requirements was just to be perpendicular with the road, and technically the diagonal grades are perpendicular with the road, but because some cyclists may be able just to quickly just make a turn there and get stuck, new regulations have caused for the grade slots to be shrunken down, which is why new regulation requires that, and hence these grades would now be deemed improper.
Yeah, I would guess that they're just old grades. As he also indicated, there's quite a few that are not flush, with the pavement. Really, the next steps are where do we go from here? He's still got to finish up some of his assessment, but then we'll try to develop a plan of attack to see what we can do to start strategically addressing these throughout the city. And yes, we'll be going to the U of I and sharing the information with them on Gregory. Is that what you're asking about?
Well, my question is, because Gregory Drive is a university-owned street,
Right.
but is it our storm sewer or is it Urbana storm sewer?
I'd have to look into that.
Yeah.
He
And
ended
then
up,
who's responsible for the grades?
Right.
It's
He-
part of our conversation.
yeah, we have some maintenance agreements that we can discuss. I think here what his charge was, looking within kind of the city boundaries. And once you get into the university district, as you know, it kind of gets a little bit nebulous. So,
It's complicated.
yeah.
Just another question. Was the 400 plus, I forget the number you said, but 400 some grates, was that all of the city grates, or was it only all of the city grates on streets with bike
The
facilities?
213 total
Okay.
grades was only on the bicycle
Okay,
facilities.
thanks.
Yeah, Nancy.
Do you have any idea how much it would cost to replace a grate?
So let's say we had to swap one out and put one in, anywhere from $500 to $1,000, probably, if not more. It just depends on the situation. Where it gets a little complex is the newer grates don't carry some of the capacity, hydraulic capacity that the older grates do. So we have to balance that out too. And there could be where you end up having to put in 2 grates to meet the capacity of one older grate. So we have to weigh that out because you don't want to do any harm and, end up having additional flooding where you didn't have that before. So we have to balance that out. So that's part of our next assessment would be to, look at in more in depth what each one of these that he's identified, what we exactly need to do, and come up with a funding plan for that.
What happens to the old grates?
Well, so a lot of our old grates, we take them back to the yard, or they become the property of the contractor, and most of the time they get recycled, because there is some metal in them. But if they're old and out of compliance, they may be used on another street that doesn't have, a bicycle facility. I want to add that any of our new projects, I've been here 14 years, and we've always installed bike-friendly grates when we've installed on new projects.
Have there been any accidents because of the bike rates?
Don't have that information. I don't have that information. I would take another separate analysis. We're, the way I look at it with Nafeez, he came here to help us this summer, and my group's short-staffed right now as it is, but there would be no way that I could staff a full-time staff member with this because we have other priorities and things that we have to do. So really fortunate to have him come on board with us. And for being a mere 19 years old, he's pretty industrious and very responsible. So, and I was talking to somebody the other day and said, I'm going to have Nafis come here and talk to you folks. And they said, he's a freshman, and isn't he scared? And he took it on. He took it on. I think I'd have been a little bit terrified, especially in front of this group.
We're not scary. We're not scary people.
What's that?
We're not scary, you know.
Yeah.
We're all good people here.
Yeah. No, he did.
We just care a lot.
Yeah, he did a good job though. He's now, and the best thing is he's got to know Urbana really well.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Do you
Yeah,
live
I'm
in
so-
Urbana?
No.
We'll work on that.
Where you
Yeah, I'm-
originally from, Chatham?
Yeah, Chatham, which is like right next to Springfield, Illinois.
Mhm. Yeah, it's on the bike ride we do there. Lincoln, no. What's the Springfield Century? CCC, Capital City Century. Chatham was one of the centers, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised there were that many out of compliance because we have done such a good job of replacing them, yeah. And I will say there was a truly terrifying grade in the bike lane in Charleston that I noted. It was a really scary one because most of us were on road bikes and they have the skinny tires, which if you catch it in there, it'll throw you right over the handlebars. So I feel like Urbana's done a really good job. It's nice to know, we now know where we've got others that we need to address and can gradually do that. And it's a great opportunity for you too, because you get to do a study and have a presentation. And that I have interns, I've had a lot of planning interns, and they really are very smart and do a great job. So thank you for being here.
So Craig, like when we do the rest of MCOR and tear up Green Street, will they redo all those storm sewers? So, is there any potential to reuse the old grates from Green Street, and if they're compliant, to replace some of the ones that are not compliant?
I haven't assessed the ones that are out there to see if they're not compliant, but they will be replaced because we're doing all new modifications to the storm sewer. I mean, we're tweaking it and everything. But that's a good point. I think we can look into that and
Maybe
see
we'll shift
what.
some of those over there or something.
Yeah. Although this is deemed a local project, it's actually it's kind of complex with MCOR, but it's got federal money that are wrapped up in it. When federal money's wrapped up in a project, just FYI, the city's not allowed to take possession of items. Those become the property of the contractor. So like when we mill a road up, the city cannot take possession of the millings. They have to become the property of the contractor. The analogy I use is if I bought kitchen cabinets 20 years ago and then I had a contractor come in and give me new cabinets and I wanted to use the old ones out in my garage, they said, no, you can't do that. And I said, well, I bought my cabinets and we bought the road, but what they want to do is they want those things to go be reused by the contractor in other projects. That's why they do that. So, that's a long answer to a short question, but
It couldn't have been a simple answer, yeah.
it's
okay.
never simple.
Thanks.
All right.
All right, any other questions?
Are these things like modular? Like, can you pop one out from somewhere and pop it in somewhere else? Is it
Possibly,
that
yeah.
easy?
Usually, though, what we find is if they're older like that, by the time we pop it off, there's usually other repairs that we have to do. Because a lot of times you'll find a brick structure or you'll find a concrete structure that some of it's deteriorated. In theory, yeah, you could pop it off and put a new one on, but most of the time we have to rebuild part of it.
Yep, go ahead.
So I was wondering, after you inventory, you have like that one-page sheet for each one, but are you doing it in GIS, or do you have an Excel document, or how are you going to hand it over to the city when you're done so they can work systematically on it?
As of right now, I have an Excel document just going along the list, and of each one I have, like, why is it, like, where is it located, and I will have a picture for each one of them, and I'll explain where you're using why this grade does not follow friendly. for the
Okay,
users.
it jumped out to me as something that, like, you could put all of that information in an attribute table in GIS, and then you could just click on it. But that map was awesome.
Yeah, we talked about that, and in the essence of time, he's used a wheel to measure off the adjacent side streets to get a location. The issue with the GPS, because we have to go out and shoot it, is now we're in full tree cover, and sometimes we aren't able to pick up the satellites to be able to actually access the system. So
Yeah, that makes
that's
sense.
the other. So maybe in the winter, we'd be able to go out. Unfortunately, then Nafeez is taking exams and things like that, and he's back
Yeah.
at the U of I and not available to us.
You
so.
could still use your sort of manual data and put it into mapping software
that
and make
too.
it useful. It just
Yeah.
depends on what your skill set is or what you're looking to do, but I
Yeah.
thought that was really well done.
Just to add to that, we've had students who don't have any like GIS training, but they'll do the map in Google Maps, and our GIS technician can pull it in from Google Maps. So if you just zoom in there and place a dot, then that can be something that the city can import.
So.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
It's very useful information. Okay, any announcements? Ride Parade this weekend, Saturday. Anything, Morgan?
There's a green stormwater and erosion control conference in July, and it's free. Are you guys already familiar with that? It's on campus, or it's in town, and it's part of our stormwater management permit. I think maybe I can send the alert to Tamara, and you can send it out, right? It's free. It's all day on July 12th, but they want people to register by the end of June. Yeah, the last one was 3 years ago, and I think that one was at the hotel. I'm not sure where it is right now. I don't remember.
Any other announcements? Okay. We have future topics. So far we have Vision Zero Subcommittee, probably next month, RPC,
I'm hoping.
next
they're-
month, RPC.
They're back to it now that Bike Month's over, to
Yeah.
Bike Wayfinding and Ped Master Plan.
Yeah.
And then we've asked, Kara has agreed to E for next month.
For E next month, okay.
Yeah. Right, Kara? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that concrete path's looking great, by the way. Then bicycle-friendly community report card. Craig said you could do that pretty much any time on short notice, relatively short notice. Subdivision development requirements, that's going to take some staff time, so we'll have to get that approved when there's time for staff. The other thing that we mentioned putting on there was a connection to the research park, and maybe the Florida Avenue study will be a big help, but we also thought about maybe, Morgan, do you know anything about any potential connection through like Arboretum or South Farms? Yeah, it is gravel. And do they actually have the gate open there now, so you can get all the way through?
You can get through from Race to Lincoln, and you can take Hazelwood. But when you get to the area after Vet Med and you're going into the crop sciences area, when we were first getting the connection through the Arboretum and Orchard, or that Arboretum space, we tried to get it all the way over to 4th Street, and the farm manager at that time was adamantly opposed, and the campus decided not to pursue it
Yeah,
at
that's why I
that
was running into
time.
a fence before, but I thought that was open now.
The fence on Lincoln is open.
Yeah. No,
The
but-
remainder is not an approved path by the university at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, I
It's
just
not
go
an
north
approved path.
there. I go north on Lincoln and get on St.
Yeah,
Mary's,
okay.
yeah,
There
which
are
is a
some-
little out of the way, but
And then,
There are some new people,
Okay.
though, if we wanted to go back and check if there's
is
some
it worth
changes.
putting that on an agenda, as an agenda item? Is there any potential to get the university to do anything with that, or to, are there plans to do anything on St. Mary? I know they redirected some of that money toward the Champaign side to do the intersection.
At the St. Mary's Road funding is going on the Champaign side. I think it's only Champaign. Do you know, Craig? There's some funding for St. Mary's Road. Do you know, is any of it in the Urbana side?
No, it's all west,
Yeah.
because it's all near the viaduct, I thought, down that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think that the I call it the Hazelwood Path that goes through, through the Arboretum. I don't think that it warrants an agenda item,
Okay. Is it something that
unless I'm
if
misunderstanding.
we advocated for, or is there anything that we could do to try to change minds or open minds on that?
There's a community member, and I'm sorry because I forgot, I don't recall their name.
Kelly Wiegand.
Yes, Kelly. So Kelly reached out and we talked about, because there's no funding available right now within the university to enhance the path from Orchard Downs to Lincoln. They were talking about putting in, maybe paving it or possibly using a limestone, like on the Kickapoo Rail Trail. And so I suggested submitting a request to the Student Sustainability Committee in the fall, which would be drafting what the request is. But my exchange with Kelly was, is this a female? I haven't, would she draft it? And she said yes.
Okay.
So I don't know, maybe she'd like to come in
And she
get
came,
input from
she
the
actually
commission.
came, I think you weren't here, maybe it was a few months ago, she came and brought that up, and we said we would think about putting it on as agenda item. So I guess just for your information, if there's anything that we can do to help that process.
Yeah, if having her get input from the commission as part of the funding request to the student committee would be reasonable. I like that idea.
Okay. Any other future topics we should think about? Nope. Okay. Seeing no more business, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
I have a quick question
Okay.
before we adjourn. I was wondering, anywhere on the city website, do we have information about the rules of the road posted in terms of, for example, drivers are supposed to yield to pedestrians and bicycles are supposed to, just the rules of the road, like what we have on the bike map or any of that? Because I think when people go look for that information, they might look on the city's website, and I was wondering if we couldn't provide that information because I think it's important information for the public to have, and I don't think we have it on our website.
Yeah, I can't think of any place where it would be.
But it would logically, many cities, the group that operates as we do has a lot more of that kind of information on the website. I don't know what the IT folks here think about that, but I think it would be really, it would add to Urbana's mission of being a bicycle-friendly community to provide some of that information, and the graphics are easily accessed, and the information's all there. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
that's definitely part of our mission is public information and
Yeah,
education.
and Ride Illinois would certainly be happy to share some of their stuff from the bike safety quiz. I'm on their board, so I can certainly facilitate.
Well, that is, the bike safety quiz is on there, is on the website, links to it.
Yeah.
So that, and that's a good start as far as driver awareness
Right.
for cyclists too, but for pedestrian awareness and
Yep.
driver awareness of pedestrians, I can't think of
Yeah,
any.
I think that it would be helpful to have, sort of roles and responsibilities.
Bill?
Yep.
I'd just like to
Audrey?
comment on the Traffic Commission website. There is a statement that I think should have a link added to it, maybe. The installation of a crosswalk on a street does not automatically protect pedestrians in the crosswalk. A marked crosswalk is used to direct pedestrians to where to cross, rather than provide a safety or protective device. Nowhere does it mention that a motorist has any kind of responsibility regarding a crosswalk. So it seems to me that at least a link to what a motorist obligations are might be helpful there, because if I was your average News Gazette reader and saw this, I would say I was absolutely correct in demanding pedestrians wait till I waved you across. because there's no mention of an obligation on a part of a driver there.
And where is that?
It's on the Traffic Commission
Commission,
webpage,
okay.
which that might be a model for some things we might want to put on the BPAC page. In other words, frequently asked question kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we definitely need to look into the website. I know that was actually one of the positions that got cut, was the website, the person in charge of the website. So it's going to be hard to get a lot of stuff. But I know that they're also planning some kind of website overhaul. I don't know what the timing on that is, but keep those ideas in mind. Maybe we should, if I can find out more about what's happening in general with the website, maybe we should have a subcommittee or something work on that. Yeah, okay. So let's put that on as a future topic, just so we keep it in mind. Is that okay? Okay. Anything else? Okay, now the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.